All right. Hi guys, today we are going to be talking all about cravings because I think that there is a lot of misconception out there about cravings, and I think that there are two major problems here, right? One is big food, and that big food industry, the processed food industry, that industry is really trying to get you and keep you addicted to processed food, because what do they want? For you to continue buying it. And the only way you continue buying it is if you continue eating it. And so there's that piece of the puzzle, right? When it comes to your cravings, why are we craving certain things? There are actually, I think I've explained this multiple times probably at this point in the YouTube videos, but just for context, for the sake of what we're talking about today, there are actually people whose job it is, they're called food scientists, who it is their job, their sole purpose, to make you more addicted to these foods by putting ingredients, chemicals, sugars, oils into these foods to make them taste better and highly palatable so that you stay addicted to them. So big food is trying to get you to be addicted to these foods. Your brain is triggered to think, oh, I'm craving that. Then on the other side of things, you also have these more like food freedom type media personalities, influencers, etc. out there who will tell you, okay, well, if you're craving, yogurt with crushed Oreos on top in the morning, well, that should be your breakfast. Like, even if it is 50 grams of sugar. Or if you're craving a hamburger and french fries, then that should be your lunch. And there is no other thought to maybe, why are you craving that sugar? What is the root cause of the craving for that hamburger? Are you potentially on a blood sugar roller coaster that is causing you to crave that sugar? Do you have candida that is causing you to crave that sugar? Do you have an iron deficiency that's causing you to crave that hamburger? And are there better solutions that are more whole food based that would cause those cravings to be less intense in the long run? And so when we think about those two things that are telling us, hey, you should have cravings. Your cravings are okay. Your cravings are your brain's way of telling you this is an easy, instant gratification type solution. We buy into that and we think it's okay. But the reality is that buying into that belief that processed foods are okay to eat all the time, we then get into a place where it starts impacting our health. It starts impacting our hormones. It starts creating symptoms, whether that is things like insulin and weight loss resistance, or low energy levels, cravings for caffeine because we are in some sort of adrenal fatigue. Maybe we start to have issues with our skin, breakouts, we start having hair loss, we start having all of these different symptoms, so much of which comes back to being metabolically unhealthy, so much of which comes back to eating way too much processed food. So just for context again, 93% of Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And the major reason for that we know from research and data and science, is because we have shifted our diets from a whole foods real diet, 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, we're all eating real whole foods. 1980s, 1990s, early 2000s, we start to see this major shift into more processed food. The more we see this shift into processed food, the more we see a shift into metabolic unhealth, the more we see a shift into chronic disease, and so many symptoms that people are dealing with. And so I really do wish that more people knew that if we actually looked under the hood and looked at what's the root cause of this craving, what is this person potentially deficient in, we could actually solve for so many imbalances and symptoms, rather than just being like, I want that instant gratification, I'm just gonna. The next craving that I see very often is cravings for sugar. I will have clients tell me, I am deeply craving a bag of candy, or I can't pass by the box of donuts in the office without having one. And if you are somebody who is having really intense cravings for sugar, it's typically one of three things. One, your body is in a desperate need for a quick source of energy, which is the fastest way to get energy is from sugar, which turns into your body into glucose, which in your body turns into glucose. The second reason is that you may be having some sort of major blood sugar fluctuation. That could be because you're really stressed. It could be because you're not eating enough protein and healthy fat, but you're having some huge blood sugar swing that is causing you to crave sugar. And the third reason is because you have some sort of gut dysbiosis, typically candida or yeast overgrowth, that is causing you to really crave sugar. So what can you do instead of eating the sugar? Because the sugar is not going to solve anything at all. Refined processed sugar is inflammatory, it is not good for your health, and it is not going to long-term be the solution. So what can you do? You can have a snack that has protein and slow-acting carbohydrates in it. Maybe a bowl of like vegan Greek yogurt that has like 20 grams of protein with some berries on top. Something that is going to satisfy. The next craving that I see a lot, especially in people who have been doing years of chronic dieting, yo-yo dieting, is the craving for fatty or fried foods. I know as somebody who literally lost my period because I wasn't eating enough, that back then when I was in super restrictive mode, I would crave fatty fried foods all the time. French fries, donuts, you name it, I craved it. And so what your body is trying to tell you if you have those cravings for fatty fried food is that you do not have enough essential fatty acids in your diet, that you're not getting enough of those fats that you need to make healthy hormones in your diet. So rather than going to, again, the inflammatory, we all know seed oils and fried foods are very inflammatory and not good, not only for our heart health, but not good for our hormones, not good for our inflammatory markers, not good for chronic disease. What you should do instead is eat healthy fats. Don't be afraid of fat. Fat is not going to make you fat. Fat is going to stabilize your blood sugar. It's going to actually lower levels of inflammation. Next up is processed simple carbohydrates. So think of things like pasta, bread, even things like Pop-Tarts that come in a package that are those like quick hits of carbs. Oftentimes we see this with a few different things. One is low levels of blood sugar. So maybe you're somebody who's doing a lot of fasting. Maybe you're somebody who is not having enough protein and fat in your diet. Maybe you're somebody who's super stressed. Adrenal issues also tends to cause cravings for simple carbohydrates. And the third thing is emotional comfort. If you are somebody who's dealing with a lot of emotional stress, you are somebody who's going through a tough time in a relationship, you're mentally stressed because of your job at work, some of those things tend to, because they're stressors on the body, tends to cause this craving for these simple carbohydrates. So instead of going for that quick fix, that quick hit of glucose to your bloodstream, because that's what those carbohydrates do. They turn into glucose in the bloodstream just like sugar would act. And they don't leave you feeling satiated or full. They leave you in a place where you're typically overeating, especially if you're not eating them with protein or fat. The first thing that you can do is, if you really, really want pasta, and you're like, I have to have it, can you maybe have a lentil pasta or a pasta made from chickpeas? That way it's more slow acting on your bloodstream. Can you have that pasta with some sort of other protein and fat? And then if you're going to swap the pasta or the bread or whatever out, can you swap it out for a complex carbohydrate, something like a sweet potato or something like beans, where there's fiber attached to the carbohydrate, so it's slower acting in your bloodstream. It's not going to give you as big of a glucose spike where you're on this blood sugar roller coaster that creates moodiness, anxiety, weight gain, all of these symptoms that are so unwanted. Can we get off of that roller coaster and have a more whole source of food, carbohydrate, that also has fiber attached? And then the last one would be craving salty foods. So we can see this from time to time with people who have adrenal issues because of the way that HPA axis dysfunction can impact the salt and sodium balance in our bodies. But more often than not, craving really salty foods means that you are somebody who is chronically dehydrated. In fact, 75% of American adults are chronically dehydrated, and we tend to overeat. We tend to crave salty foods when we are dehydrated. And so the best thing that you can do when you're craving something salty is to think about, am I getting enough water in a day? Am I getting, and I'm not talking soda, I'm not talking tea, I'm not talking coffee, I'm talking straight water on top of all those other beverages that you're drinking, at least 80 ounces of water a day. Are you adding electrolytes or minerals or both to your water every day? Because those things are going to help your cells actually utilize the water that you're drinking. If we don't have that proper mineral balance, what can start to happen is the water just ends up running through us, where we're not absorbing it into the cell and using it properly. So those two things. And then if we are able to reduce stress, that can actually really help with proper dehydration and with those salt and sodium cravings. So I hope that this video was helpful and gives you an understanding that when you are craving a piece of cake or a cupcake or a donut or a Big Mac, your body biologically was never designed to crave those things. You actually have something deeper going on with your body. Your body actually has something more that it's trying to tell you. So rather than going for that quick fix, can you get curious? Can you think a little bit more deeply in terms of what you now know about nutrition and hormones and your body, and try to give yourself and your body something a little bit more nourishing, fulfilling, and satisfying for the long term. If you like this video and what we shared, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our page, and we will see you next week.